We were doing something that had never been done before, and figuring out on the fly how we could do it, how we could deal with all this data, make some sense out of it, and do some analyses and interpret the impacts of the plants on striped bass and other fish. So that's how I became involved in mid-1977, and it more or less continued forever, with a few breaks in between. Now, we spent, at least on the energy side, a lot of time looking at a lot of different ways to discover if we could determine from the many years of data that we now had, whether there were any measurable impacts of plant operations on any of the major populations in the river. And we looked at time series analysis. We looked at correlations between plant operations and fish abundance and reproduction. We looked at how rates of reproduction and early life stage survival had changed over the 40 years of data that we had. And we came to the conclusion ourselves that there was no discernible impact that you could detect by any of the methods that we had available. But on the other ways, we also learned a lot about trends in reproduction and survival of early life stages, because we were measuring everything. We were measuring the abundance of every life stage of all of these species. Where in the case of striped bass, reproduction was always very strong, and it was pretty clear that the abundance of striped bass was being caused by fishing, whether it was overfished or underfished or whatever. If you change the level of fishing, you change the level of reproduction, and it was very clear one-to-one relationship. Having 40 years of data, we thought we found fairly strong evidence of density-dependent early life stage survival in striped bass, white perch, and even American shad. And we were not the only people who did that. There were several other papers published by Hudson River researchers that came to the same conclusion for one or another species. And that's something we learned, although it ended up not being relevant to the power plant case, because the power plant case had gone way beyond population impacts and density dependence. That's just an example of some basic science that we found and that I personally had a lot of involvement in. With the data that we have now, I'm not sure how much more I would want to have done. Now, I do wish we had some additional data. Now, in terms of what to do with the existing data, that's where I have to rely on the next generation, which is you guys. You're up on the new questions, today's questions in marine biology and estuarine biology. I'm looking for you to pick up the ball and carry it farther.